Under the burning heat of a dry Lagos afternoon, Aid moved with the tired rhythm of a boy carrying more weight in his heart than on his head. The plastic bag of pure water bounced against his shoulder as he walked the long stretch of the Ikorodu Expressway. Sweat traced thin, stinging paths down his dusty face. He had lived 18 years without softness, love, or certainty, yet every step carried an invisible strength. On that quiet road, with no witnesses but the rising heat, life prepared to crack open for him in a way that would rewrite every truth he knew. The lonely expressway stretched forward like an endless mouth waiting to swallow anything that wandered into its silence. Aid's torn slippers slapped the asphalt with the same tired sound they always made, yet today they carried an unusual nervousness he could not name. The heat shimmered above the road like a warning, bending the air in trembling waves. Aid felt something shift inside him, a strange ache nudging the back of his mind. He didn't know it yet, but the road in front of him was about to become the line between life before and life after. As he approached a small bend where bushes hugged the roadside, the world seemed to hold its breath. Even the distant hum of traffic softened, leaving an eerie calm that scratched at his instincts. Aid slowed, his eyes scanning the rustling shrubs. He had walked this road for years, scraping survival from its dust, and he knew when something was wrong. The afternoon sun hung above him like a watchful eye. A faint movement in the bushes caught his attention again, quick and sharp, like the twitch of a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His heartbeat quickened, though he didn't understand why. Ahead, a sleek black Range Rover slowed slightly, avoiding a deep pothole that had swallowed many tires in the past. The SUV's polished surface glinted harshly in the sun, a piece of wealth drifting through a landscape starved of it. Aid watched it, curious but unconcerned, unaware of the silent danger pressed against the bushes just a few meters ahead. That short, ordinary moment, a car, a pothole, the quiet breath of an empty highway, was about to fracture violently, pulling him into a fate he had never imagined. Before he reached the car, the bushes erupted with violent movement. 3 men burst out like unleashed shadows, their clothes dark, their faces half-covered, their intentions sharp as the weapons they held. They sprinted toward the slowing SUV with the reckless confidence of men who had done this before. The sudden chaos snapped the air open. Aid froze for a heartbeat, watching the attack unfold like a nightmare someone else should be living. The expressway, earlier quiet and harmless, transformed instantly into a stage for danger, fear, and the test of courage that destiny had been saving for him. The armed men reached the vehicle in seconds, banging on the tinted window with a force that carried hunger and desperation. The metallic sounds echoed across the road, piercing the stillness. The car jerked slightly as the driver inside panicked. Aid saw the flash of a long knife raised toward the glass. His chest tightened. He sensed the moment was spiraling into something irreversible. The sun seemed to dim for a second, as though the world itself flinched away from what was about to happen. Aid felt time thicken, every sound stretching into something heavy and uncomfortable. The window rolled halfway down, revealing a terrified woman in her early 30s. Her jewelry sparkled in the sunlight, but her fear sparkled more violently. She was dressed in elegant business attire, her face painted with panic and helplessness. Aid recognized the expression, the same hollow dread he used to see on the faces of those who lost everything overnight. The robbers leaned in, their breath thick with menace. The knife hovered too close, ready to turn the moment into a tragedy. Aid's mind screamed a warning, yet his body responded faster than thought. He dropped the water bag from his head, letting it burst open on the asphalt like a small sacrifice to the madness unfolding. The cold splash touched his ankle, breaking whatever fear had been holding him still. His eyes darted around until they landed on a stone, large and jagged. Without hesitation, he snatched it up, his fingers tightening around its rough edges. A strange calm washed over him, as though bravery had grown out of the same soil that birthed his suffering. He ran, not because he believed he would survive, but because something deep inside refused to watch innocence bleed. Aid launched himself forward with the reckless speed of someone who had nothing to lose. The stone weighed heavily in his hand, but his determination carried it effortlessly. Each step pounded against the road, shaking loose the fear he should have felt. The robbers didn't notice him until he was too close, his shadow falling over them like an unexpected omen. The world narrowed to the weight of the stone, the angle of his wrist, the distance between life and death. His heart thundered, not with fear, but with purpose so fierce it felt like destiny steering his limbs. He He swung the stone with all the strength stored in years of hunger, struggle, and quiet endurance. It connected with a sickening crack against the wrist of the thief holding the knife. The weapon clattered to the ground, its dangerous shine dimming as it hit the asphalt. The attacker screamed, stumbling backward in shock, gripping his injured arm. Surprised by the sudden assault, the second robber lunged at Aid, but Aid's body moved like it remembered a survival code carved into his bones. He dodged, feeling wind brush his cheek where a blade should have been. He kicked the second robber in the stomach with a force that startled even him. The man folded, gasping, stumbling back toward the car. The third robber hesitated, unsure whether to attack or flee. Aid stood panting, chest rising and falling in heavy waves, the stone still warm in his hand as though absorbing the fire inside him. His limbs trembled from adrenaline, but his stance remained solid. For a moment, he seemed larger than his skinny, starved frame. He looked like a storm wearing the body of a boy. The robbers exchanged quick glances filled with fear and disbelief. The approaching sound of cars in the distance created a new tension in the air. Honks and faint shouts floated toward them, growing louder as the scene drew attention. The robbers, rattled by Aid's wild courage and the fast-approaching witnesses, made a desperate decision. They bolted into the bushes, disappearing as quickly as they had emerged. Aid watched them vanish, his body shaking uncontrollably now that the danger was gone. The stone dropped from his hand, landing with a soft thud that felt strangely final. He breathed heavily, trying to convince himself the moment had actually happened. Aid's gaze slowly lifted toward the open window of the Range Rover. Inside, the woman stared at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. Her fear had not faded, but something else had replaced it, something soft, deep, and grateful. She studied him as though trying to understand how someone who looked so fragile could fight with such ferocity. Aid shifted uncomfortably, aware suddenly of his torn slippers, sweat-soaked shirt, and trembling fingers. Yet the woman's gaze held no judgment. It held shock, wonder, and a silent question he had no answer to. The expressway soon buzzed with the gathered crowd, curious onlookers, concerned drivers, and those who simply wanted to witness the aftermath of chaos. Someone called the police, and within minutes, officers arrived. Aid stood quietly at the side, replaying the entire event in his mind as though trying to assure himself it wasn't a dream or a reckless hallucination. The officers questioned witnesses, examined the dropped knife, and assessed the scene. Through all of it, the woman remained inside her car, her eyes drifting back to him repeatedly, as though tethered to the boy who had saved her life. When the officers finished gathering information, the woman stepped out of the car for the first time. Her legs trembled slightly, revealing just how shaken she truly was. She gestured for Aid to come closer, and though his instincts warned him about approaching someone so obviously wealthy, something in her expression reassured him. She insisted he accompany her to the nearest station to give a full statement. Aid hesitated, unsure whether he belonged in such company, but her calm insistence left no room for argument. He followed, still confused, still trembling, still unsure why fate had chosen him. At the police station, the officers listened to Aid's account with raised brows, impressed by the courage in his story. They recorded everything, nodding occasionally, glancing at him as though expecting to see fear instead of quiet determination. By the time they were done, the woman had given her own statement, calm, grateful, and explicit in her praise of the young orphan who risked his life for hers. When they left the station, she offered him a ride home. Aid attempted to decline, embarrassed by where she would find him living, but she insisted, refusing to let him walk. The Range Rover rolled into Aid's settlement, a place built from rusted metal sheets, cracked wood, and decades of neglect. The narrow paths between shacks buzzed with flies and the smell of damp soil. Children with bare feet chased each other around abandoned tires. Aid's wooden shed stood crookedly, leaning like it was tired of supporting itself. Inside, there was no bed, no table, no sign of comfort, only a worn mat on the floor, a small bucket, and a few items wrapped in a nylon bag. The woman stepped out of the car and stared in stunned silence. The transformation on her face was immediate. Shock hardened into sadness, then melted into a fierce, complicated emotion that looked a lot like guilt mixed with responsibility. She took in every detail. The broken door that couldn't fully close, the missing roof sheet that let rainwater drip inside, the absence of food, furniture, or anything resembling human comfort. Aid watched her quietly, uncomfortable but resigned. This was his life, and he had stopped expecting it to change. The woman, however, Looked like she had stepped into a nightmare she wasn't prepared for, his nightmare. That night, the woman lay awake in her mansion, unable to shake the image of the crooked shed where the boy who saved her life slept. Her house was large enough for echoes, filled with marble floors, soft beds, and warm lights, yet she felt restless. She replayed the moment Aid charged at the armed robbers, how he swung the stone, how he stood shaking in the aftermath. She imagined how many nights he had slept afraid, hungry, and unseen. Something inside her refused to be silent. Gratitude morphed into obligation, and obligation into a decision that would change everything. The next morning, a Prado Jeep rolled into Aid's settlement, drawing immediate attention. Neighbors peeked out from their shacks, whispering among themselves, wondering what such a luxurious vehicle was doing in a place forgotten by comfort. Aid stood outside his shed, sweeping away dirt as he always did at sunrise. When he saw the Jeep, his hand paused in midair. The woman stepped out, dressed simply but elegantly. She walked toward him with determination carved into every step. Aid felt his chest tighten with confusion. He did not yet know the weight of the moment that had arrived for him. She studied him again, this time with a certainty that had not existed the day before. She asked him to pack his things, but Aid only stared at the mat inside the shed. He whispered that he didn't have things, only the mat. The simplicity of his statement hit her like a punch. She realized that everything he owned in the world could be folded into two hands. In that moment, something deep and unspoken passed between them, a silent agreement that poverty had ruled his life long enough, and destiny was finally choosing a different script for him. Aid climbed into the Prado Jeep, still unsure if the moment was real. The shed behind him remained still, holding the memories of every struggle, every night he slept cold, every morning he woke hungry. As the car pulled away, dust rose behind them like a final breath from the life he was leaving. He watched it shrink in the distance, a place that had shaped him but no longer defined him. His heart flooded with fear and hope tangled together, unsure which emotion would win. The road ahead looked brighter, but brightness can blind as much as it can guide. They entered her estate through tall iron gates that opened with silent ease. The greenery, the fountains, the bright walls, and the symmetry of luxury overwhelmed Aid's senses. His eyes darted everywhere, trying to understand how such beauty could exist so casually. Every step he took felt like walking into a dream sculpted by someone else. The boys' quarters where he was taken were small compared to the main house, but to Aid, it was a palace. A bed, a fan, clean tiles, and a small wardrobe awaited him. He stood still, afraid to touch anything in case it vanished. Over the next few days, Adanna arranged everything with quiet efficiency. She enrolled him in a private school, hired a tutor, bought him clothes, and ensured he ate meals he had never imagined tasting. Aid tried to adjust, but his body retained the habits of survival. Eating quickly, waking early, tiptoeing as though expecting to be shouted at. Yet with each passing day, the fear softened slightly, replaced by a cautious curiosity about this new life. Something inside him began to thaw, a soft place he had hidden for years suddenly daring to imagine a different future. As weeks turned into months, Aid's transformation began. He stuttered with the fire of someone who had walked too close to hopelessness. His manners, diligence, and kindness drew admiration everywhere. But beneath his growth, a lingering shadow remained, the memory of the expressway, the robbers, the stone that changed his fate. He did not yet know that the same moment, the same fear, the same leap into danger would follow him into the future, guiding his greatest creation and shaping the man he was becoming. Destiny wasn't done with him. It was only taking a breath. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. Africanfolktales 247 will love to hear from you again. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on our interesting stories.